so complex, complex things don't happen automatically. Somebody has to create them. You know, doing an imagination, computer animation of how it might have happened, that's not science. That's imagination. The lug nuts from a Pontiac will fit on a Chevy. You go try it. They will. That proves they both evolved from a Honda 14 million years ago. No, that proves the same guys are making them, okay? It's common designer. Textbooks are going to tell your kids that the peppered moth is evidence for evolution. This was proven wrong years ago. The peppered moth, according to the story, had dark babies and light babies, but on the light-colored trees, the light ones blended in better, and the dark ones got eaten more. And then when they burned coal in the factories, the trees turned dark, and the dark ones blended in better, and the light ones got eaten. And so they say the population ratio shifted from 95% light to 95% dark. Well, the problem is the whole story is baloney. It didn't happen. They glued dead moths on the tree to take that picture for your kid's textbook. After 40 years of watching, they found 2 moths on the trees. 2 in 40 years. What's 95% of 2? So if you have evidence for evolution, I really want to see it. However, the peppered moth is not evidence for evolution. Even if the story were true, all they had was a shift in the population ratio. That's proof of a designer giving his creatures the ability to produce a variety of offspring, so some will always survive. That's still evidence for creation, if the story were true, not evidence for evolution. The idea of the embryo having gill slits has been proven wrong years ago. This textbook says the presence of fish-like structures in embryos of different species shows these animals have evolved from fish and share the basic pattern of fish development. This is simply not true. They say it has gills like a fish. Just because the skin is wrinkled up, I got the same wrinkles in my elbow and behind my knee. It doesn't prove a thing. You got wrinkles. Some of you got a lot of wrinkles on your body, actually. But what does that prove? Okay, I'm getting them too. All right. Now, the textbook, though, says the presence of gills and tails is evidence of a common ancestor. This is not true. This junior high textbook says the similarities provide evidence that these 3 animals evolved from a common ancestor. Again, talking about the gill slits. This has been proven wrong years ago. 1875 it was proven wrong. It's not true. This textbook says humans and fish embryos resemble each other because humans and fish share a common ancestor. Now look, I don't mind if somebody wants to believe that. But I resent paying for that to go into a textbook, and that's the only answer the kid's given. I further resent them cutting down a perfectly good tree to print that. Okay? And we need Al Gore on this one. Oh, okay. Those little folds of skin develop into bones in the ear and glands in the throat. They never have anything to do with breathing. Just because the skin is wrinkled up doesn't mean it's gills, or even it's partly gills, or even it's related to gills. I've seen people with a bunch of chins and they can't breathe through any of them but the top one. Okay? Ernst Haeckel faked his drawings in 1869 to make people believe this evolution theory. He admitted he lied in 1875 when his own university held a trial. He was convicted of fraud. On top are Haeckel's drawings. Underneath are the actual photographs of those creatures he claimed he's drawing a picture of. The drawings are simply fraudulent. They're lies. There's no kind way to say it. They're lies. Get them out of the textbook. They tell the kids in school the appendix is evidence of evolution because your appendix is smaller than a horse's. Well, we don't eat as much, green vegetables as horses eat. Maybe they don't dig up as much junk as they do in eating off the ground. But the fact is, you do have a smaller appendix than a horse. So what? That's all you need. The appendix, they'll say it's vestigial. It's not vestigial. You need your appendix, okay? If your appendix is taken out, you shorten your lifespan, I believe, by about 8 years. You got a much better chance of getting a lot of diseases. The appendix is where part of the immune system responses are initiated. They've known that for years. It's not vestigial. This textbook tells the kids one of the evidences for evolution is the whale's vestigial pelvis. Many organisms retain traces of their evolutionary history. For example, the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. This is baloney. They say the whale has a vestigial pelvis and leg bone that serve no purpose. Just imagine whales walking around. It's true. That's not true. Here's from Los Angeles Museum. Those are the bones they're talking about right there. Just imagine the whale walking around. Actually, this is a lie. Those bones are used in reproduction. The whales are pretty big, and those little bones have special muscles that attach to them that allow the whales to reproduce. It has nothing to do with walking on land. This is not evidence for evolution. This is evidence for design. Okay? In our museum in Florida, we have a 15.5-foot python snake skin. Down at the south end of that skin, you can see little claws that are attached to little bitty bones going up inside the snake's body. The textbook says these are rudimentary hind legs of a python snake. This is not true. Those little claws are used in mating. The snake can't talk. You can't say screwed over. Okay? This has nothing to do with walking on land. It has to do with getting baby snakes. So if you have evidence for evolution, I'd like to see it, but that's not evidence for evolution. Okay? This guy says the humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use. The vestigial tailbone in humans is homologous to the functional tail of other primates. Thus, vestigial structures can be viewed as evidence for evolution. Organisms having vestigial structures probably share a common ancestry. Well, look, you're welcome to believe that, but it's not true, okay? The tailbone's not vestigial. You need your tailbone. There are 9 muscles that attach to the tailbone, without which there are quite a few functions you cannot perform. I won't tell you what they all are, but trust me, you need those, okay? Now, if you think the tailbone is vestigial, I have a long time standing offer. I will pay to have yours removed. Bend over, okay? Me and the Swiss Army can fix this in 15 minutes. Now, this textbook, though, says the coccyx, the tailbone, is a small bone at the end of the human vertebral column. It has no present function and is thought to be the remainder of bones that once occupied the long tail of a tree-living ancestor. First, it's not true. It's been proven wrong years ago. Secondly, that ought to be taught in a school for religion, not a school for science. This is not part of science. Why is this in a science book? Take that out of the book. A tail would be handy. I mean, anyway. This textbook draws what's called a phylogenetic tree, and they have humans, birds, and crocodiles having a common ancestor. It only takes place on paper in the imagination. It never takes place in reality. Darwin said it's a truly wonderful fact that all animals and all plants throughout all time and space should be related to each other. Well, Charlie, you're welcome to believe that. But that's not science. And I resent that being taught in science classes at taxpayer expense. And I think many other people do also. That's not evidence for evolution. The fact that you believe it doesn't make it true. They talk about natural selection being the cause. He mentioned tonight natural selection. I agree. Natural selection works. But it only selects. It doesn't design a thing. It doesn't create anything. If I was going to select, if I wanted a population of people over 10 feet tall, so I'm going to go around and kill everybody under 10 feet tall. I don't have anybody over 10 feet to select from. You can't get a population of 10-footers because there's nothing to select from. You can select, natural selection does that, it doesn't create a thing. The textbooks tell the kids about the horse being evidence for evolution. And so we went from a 4-toed horse to a 1-toed horse. That is baloney, proven wrong 55 years ago. But they're still teaching it. They say we started from complex chemical soup and went to a living organism very slowly. Oh yeah. This textbook says all the many forms of life on Earth today descended from a common ancestor. Then it says no traces of those events remain. We know what happened, but there's no proof. Well, you know what happened because of your imagination. You don't know what happened because of scientific evidence. It's not science. That's all I'm saying. This is not evidence for evolution. The fact that you can write it on paper, or the fact that some famous scientist, Dobzhansky, says, oh, this is true, or therefore it's true, it doesn't make it true because some famous scientist says it's true. Where's the beef? Where's the evidence? And they talk about a simple single-celled organism. Single-celled organisms are not simple, folks. One paramecium is more complex than a space shuttle. And you can put thousands of those in a drop of water. Michael Behe's got a great book out called Darwin's Black Box, if you want to read about the complexity of living organisms. He spends a whole chapter talking about the complexity of the hair on a bacteria. The whole chapter about one hair on a bacteria attached to a little motor that's a rotary engine. That little motor is incredible. It turns 100,000 RPM, forward or backward. And it's just like, as the things get smaller, the fluid they move through feels thicker to them. So bacteria swimming through water is like a